Hello, mortals. I'm the booktube goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. It is time for another game of Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick books for my TBR based solely on their covers. Now I'm going to look at young adult, science fiction, and fantasy. I'm going to select which covers to shelve and which covers to shove. And at the end of the covers that I've shelved, I'll pick at least one to add to my TBR. So let's get started with young adult. And the first book up is Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. And I kind of like this cover. There's a little blurb. Their order divides them, their revenge will unite them. It looks like two African women, or young girls, I should say, since we're in young adult. And the font looks like it is embroidered in gold, or are those gold bricks? Either way, it's kind of a cool cover. I'm assuming it is fantasy. I think I will shelve it. Next up is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. And it has a gorgeous, looks like almost a oil painting with a young lady. It's quite intense, actually, if you look at it closely. There's these flowers draping down her. It looks like there's blood coming out of one side. There's an ant on her forehead. And I like how the font House of Hollow, it looks like they're on little fabric pieces. 2 in a row. I've got to shelve it. Next up is The Infinity Courts by Akemi Dawn Bowman. And it's a dark cover. It looks like there's a young lady, possibly of Asian descent. It looks like a red moon, and there's these little red globes around her. I'm assuming it is fantasy because she has a dagger hidden behind her back. Well, I don't know. I'm not feeling this one. It's the artwork. After the first two covers, the artwork just isn't as vibrant. So I think I'm going to shove it. Next up is Blessed Monsters by Emily Duncan, author of The Wicked Saints. I've heard of this. I have not read Emily Duncan, but just looking at the cover, it's kind of interesting. There looks like there are birds, eagles, hawks. Doesn't look like crows, looks like hawks flying, and there is this, looks like an overrun city at the top and the reflection of another city at the bottom. Looks like there's those onion dome turrets and a red eye in the center. Yeah, I'm not feeling this one either. I'm going to shove it. By the way, if you've read Wicked Saints, let me know in the comments below whether that's a book that I should be interested in. I don't know. Next up is Pride and Premeditation by Tirza Price. And it is a Jane Austen murder mystery. So obviously this is probably going to be in the Regency time period. I don't know if they're Jane Austen characters or if Jane Austen's the actual detective that solves these murders. I really like the embroidery around it with flowers and guns and a knife and possibly Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth. I don't know. I'm intrigued by the concept, a cozy mystery Jane Austen style. But because of the title, Pride and Premeditation, and calling it a Jane Austen mystery, I wonder how much source material they're actually pulling from the Austen books. Well, it's got me curious enough. I think I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. Now, before we move on to science fiction, please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Okay, first up in science fiction is Hummingbird Salamander by Jeff Vandermeer, author of Annihilation, and there is a hummingbird on the cover. No salamander, and it looks photorealistic. I don't know anything about this book, and the cover isn't telling me much, so I'm going to go ahead and shove it. Next up is Fugitive Telemetry by Martha Wells. Gosh, I've been seeing her name everywhere recently. She must be extremely prolific. Anyway, the cover has what looks to be a robot and a guy in a spacesuit. It is part of the Hugo and Nebula award-winning series Murderbot. And someone had recently told me that Murderbot is really good. And I don't think I would start with however long into the series this book is. I would go back to the first Murderbot book. Therefore, I think I am going to have to shove it. Next up is The End of Men by Christina Sweeney Baird. Only men carry the virus, only women can save us all. And there's one of those clever pictures where it looks like a man's face in shadow and then a cutout or a silhouette of a woman's face. Isn't done very well. I don't think so, especially not after coronavirus. I don't think I want to read about another virus. I think I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Last Watch by J.S. Dews. They're humanity's last chance, and apparently it is a novel of the divide, so I assume this is in a series. And it looks like there's a spaceship floating through some portal maybe, and then being destroyed on the other side or being broken up into components. Okay. Not feeling this one. I think I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Galaxy and the Ground Within by Becky Chambers, winner of the Hugo Award for Best Series. Have not heard about this. Now, obviously, this is part of a series if it won the Hugo Award for it. And the cover itself, I kind of like it. I mean, I like that font. It makes it look kind of retro, and it looks like there's like a Enterprise type ship and some other interesting looking aircraft. But I don't think I'm going to start a series right now, certainly not with this one. For those reasons, I am going to shove it. So I haven't shelved any science fiction. What's going on, science fiction? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to fantasy. First cover is Hopisho by Leon Ross. Hopisho. It looks like there is some sort of avant-garde Dali-esque painting of someone holding an apple that's dripping, and boy, do I not know what's going on with this novel. Artistically, I think it's kind of intriguing, but it's not telling me much, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Pieces by Helen Oyeyemi. And boy, this is an ugly cover. This is one ugly cover. There is a ferret, or a meerkat. I think that's a meerkat on top of a caboose. There's a green leaf. There's a couple of blue gloved hands. There's a emerald maybe. I don't know what's going on. Oy, this one I do not care for. I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Girl and the Mountain by Mark Lawrence, and it is the second book of the Ice. I haven't read the first book. The cover itself is fine. There is a mountain and a woman with a sword in some type of snow theme. not going to start the second book in a series, so I am going to shove it. Next up is Malice by Heather Walter. And I kind of like this. There's like these two women's hands reaching up with a rose, and there's vines growing up her wrists. And something tells me this is a fairy tale retelling. I'm guessing. I could be totally wrong, but I'm thinking about Malice as in Alice in Wonderland, but with the thorns, I'm getting Sleeping Beauty. I'm intrigued enough by this cover that I am going to go ahead and shelve it. Next up is The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer Armentrout. Boy, this author's name is familiar. I may have read something by her before, at least seen her name around. And it is the cover that I am getting so tired of. There's the name of the title in the cover and these things around it. It's becoming so done. I'm over it. I am over it. So just based on that, I am going to shove it. Okay, this is interesting. I picked 3 young adult, 0 science fiction, and 1 fantasy. The young adults are Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart, House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland, Pride and Premeditation by Tirza Price, and in fantasy, Malice by Heather Walter. And full disclosure, I do not know any of these authors, so just basing it on the cover. Do I want what I think is a fairy tale retelling adult book, Malice? Do I want a Jane Austen murder mystery? Do I want House of the Hollow, which has that gorgeous cover, and Witches Steeped in Gold, which also had an interesting illustration. I think House of the Hollow was a prettier cover than Witches, but I like Witches. House of Hollow, I'm going to think maybe one of those young adults with a strong romance, so I'm going to say no to House of Hollow. And that leaves Malice. And likewise, Malice, I have a feeling if it is a fairy tale retelling and if it is sort of an Alice Sleeping Beauty mashup, I think I'm going to say no to Malice. That leaves Witches Steeped in Gold and Pride and Premeditation. Oh my god, I can't pick. I love stories about witches. I am just so curious about a Jane Austen murder mystery. You know what? I'm going to throw caution to the wind. I'm going to go ahead and add both Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart and Pride and Premeditation by Tirza Price. Oh boy. Did I really just pick 2 young adult books to add to my TBR? Wasn't I just saying last month I wanted to get away from just reading young adult? What is going on? What is going on? Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the first book, which is Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. I hope I'm pronouncing her first name. But it is apparently part of a series. Of course it is. Which is Steeped in Gold number 1. Divided by their order, united by their vengeance. What does that mean? Ireya has spent her life in a cell, but every day brings her closer to freedom and vengeance. Jasmine is the queen's daughter, but unlike her sister before her, she has no intention of dying to strengthen her mother's power. What? Okay. Sworn enemies, these 2 witches enter a precarious alliance to take down a mutual threat. But power is intoxicating, revenge is a bloody pursuit, and nothing is certain except the lengths they will go to win this game. This Jamaican-inspired fantasy debut about 2 enemy witches who must enter into a deadly alliance to take down a common enemy has the twisted cat and mouse of Killing Eve and the richly imagined fantasy world of Fury Born and Ember in the Ashes. Okay, so I am very happy I picked this book. This sounds right up my alley. I'm going to assume maybe this queen, this evil queen who kills her daughters for power, is the enemy, and this one witch is in a dungeon and the queen's daughter frees her, so they battle the queen. I don't know. Totally guessing just based on this blurb, but okay. I am into it. I am looking forward to reading Witches Steeped in Gold. Next up is Pride and Premeditation by Tirza Price. This too is part of a series, Jane Austen Murder Mystery #1. Now, if this is one of those cozy mysteries where each book is its own sort of standalone murder mystery, I'm not too mad about starting this as a series, unless there are these story arcs that make me have to read more of these murder mystery books to get a completed storyline. We'll see. Perfect for the fans of the Lady Janies and Stalking Jack the Ripper, the first book in the Jane Austen murder mystery series is a clever retelling of Pride and Prejudice that reimagines the iconic settings, characters, and romances in a thrilling and high-stakes whodunit. This kind of reminds me of Alexa Dunn. She's also on YouTube here as an author tuber. She did retellings of classics in science fiction world. I did read the first book, her debut novel, Burning Brightly, which was a retelling of Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre. Lost it for a minute. Okay, I guess I was right about this being a Elizabeth, Mr. Darcy crime fighting team. Okay, let's read about it. When a scandalous murder shocks London high society, 17-year-old aspiring lawyer Lizzie Bennet seizes the opportunity to prove herself despite the interference of Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy, the stern young heir to the prestigious firm Pemberley Associates. Convinced the authorities have imprisoned the wrong person, Lizzie vows to solve the murder on her own, but as the case and her feelings for Darcy become more complicated, Lizzie discovers that her dream job could make her happy, but it might also get her killed. Okay, I don't know how much of a retelling of Pride and Prejudice this is. I kind of like the fact that they have Lizzie Bennet as a lawyer, and we're not getting stuck in that women are chattel type of situation that many Regency women were stuck in. Certainly Jane Austen's stories explored. So, I don't know about this one, guys. So let me know down below which books you would have picked and added to your TBR based solely on their cover. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.